Today we are going to read more Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Loaded Dipper Overload. Let's get started. There wasn't a lot of time before the band was scheduled to go on, so we got there as fast as we could. But there was no need to rush because there weren't all that many fans to see Loaded Dipper anyway. And there was at least one person who looked like he didn't even want to be there. Even though the guys were disappointed in the number of people who showed up, Roderick still wanted to get diapers out into the crowd, so he put me in charge of that. But we only had a few and never did manage to get our hands on one of those t-shirt guns. Once the set was done, the guys wanted to just pack up and go home. But unfortunately, Mom signed up for the full dipper, so we were stuck there for a while. Friday. After the Rock and Rowdy Fest, none of the guys seemed that motivated to practice. The Battle of the Bands is just a few weeks away, but I think they all know they don't have a realistic chance of winning it. Roderick decided the only thing that can turn things around for Loaded Dipper is a pep talk from someone who's been in their shoes. He thinks if they can track down Metal Chihuahua's drummer, Sebastian Sleeves, that guy could give the band the spark it needs. Sebastian Sleeves is basically Roderick's hero, and he's always talking about how great he is. According to Roderick, one time Sebastian burned his hands in a hamburger grilling accident, and it looked like Metal Chihuahua was going to have to cancel its world tour. But Sebastian taught himself to drum with his feet, so the band didn't even miss a show. And from then on, he just kept doing it that way. The only problem in finding this guy is that, hello, hi to you too. The only problem in finding this guy is that it doesn't seem like he wants to be found. Because after he did that last magazine interview, he basically dropped off the face of the earth. And nobody's heard from him since. Ooh, 7 people, let's go. But Roderick's made it his mission to find Sebastian Sleeves. So lately, Roderick's been going through old magazine articles and pictures to see if he can find any clues that might give a hint about where Sebastian is now. Oh, you are India? Nice. Hi, India. I'm from the USA. I'm from America. Roderick's hit a bunch of dead ends. But last night, Mackie had a genius idea. He said that if you build a pool, you have to get a permit, which is part of the public record. Oh, hi, Sarah. Hi. The guy started looking up all the pool permits. Yep, I'm from the USA. That were issued around that time. Message held for review. Let's see what this is. I'm a boy. I don't know why that would be held for review. Doesn't sound very, I don't know, nefarious. The guys started looking up pool permits that were issued around the time that last picture of Sebastian was taken. And even though there were a lot of pools built that year, there was only one in the shape of a chihuahua head. The guys looked up a satellite image of the property, and there was a big wall around it, so it seemed like just the type of place a rock star would live. They all agreed that when they got to the house, they couldn't just drive up to the front gate and ring the doorbell. Drew said maybe they could scale the walls and sneak into the property. Thank you, Sarah, for subscribing. I appreciate it. Drew said maybe they could scale the walls and sneak onto the property, but famous people always have lots of security, so that seems like a terrible plan to me. Bill said that maybe they could just wait for Sebastian to come outside the gate and they could toss him inside the truck, but none of the guys were sure if that was actually legal. They couldn't agree on a plan, so they just agreed to wing it when they got there. I usually like to tag along with the band, but I decided to sit this one out because even though I knew whatever happened would probably make a good chapter in my book, it didn't seem like it was worth going to jail over. Saturday. I'm glad I trusted my instincts for once because when Roderick filled me in on everything that happened today, I was happy. I didn't have to experience it firsthand. The band left early this morning, and when they got to the property, they knew they had the right place. They sat there for a while trying to figure out what to do. But while they were arguing over their next move, a food delivery person pulled up to the gate, dropped off a bag, and drove away. A minute later, the gate opened, and there was Sebastian Sleeves in the flesh. Only he looked 25 years older than he did in the picture in the magazine. Roderick stepped out of the ice cream truck, and when he did, Sebastian spotted him. And I guess this wasn't the first time Metal Chihuahua fans had shown up at his house, because he was back inside the gate before the guys got within 10 feet of him. Sebastian walked away, but Roderick yelled and asked him to stop. Roderick said they weren't there for autographs, they just wanted to talk. Sebastian must have been willing to hear what Roderick had to say because he stood there while he ate his burger. Roderick told Sebastian that they were all huge fans of Metal Chihuahua, and they were trying to follow in their footsteps, and he asked if Sebastian had any advice on how Loaded Dipper could make it to the top. Sebastian took a minute to finish his burger and fries. Then he pressed the button and opened the gate, and none of them could believe what was happening. They followed Sebastian onto the property, and even though the mansion was still pretty impressive, it looked like it had seen better days. Sebastian stopped at the pool, which was very recognizable from the picture in the magazine. Then he handed the guys some cleaning supplies. He said he'd be happy to talk as long as they cleaned the pool. So the guys got to work while Sebastian drank his soda on the diving board. Sebastian told the guys that when the band ran out of money, he had to sell off all his expensive cars and fancy things just to pay the property taxes. And then when he burned through that money, the state shut off his water and electricity. So he's been living off the tiny royalty checks that come in from the Metal Chihuahua Pups show, which apparently still runs in Denmark. But Roderick wasn't really interested in hearing this guy's sob story, so he tried to change the subject by asking him what advice he had for Loaded Dipper. I think Roderick was hoping Sebastian would give them a pep talk, but he gave them the opposite. He said that nowadays there's no place on the radio for a band that writes their own songs and plays their own music. So if Loaded Dipper really wanted to make it big, he said they needed to ditch their instruments and learn how to lip sync and hire a choreographer. Then Sebastian said it's practically impossible to make it in the music business anyway. So the best advice he could give the guys was to quit now and focus on their education instead. Because if they didn't, they might end up like him, flat broke and living in a pool house with no electricity or running water. I guess it was a long ride back for the guys, and when they got to our house, nobody was in a talkative mood. And all anyone wanted to do was go home to take a shower and wash off the smell of pool chemicals. Tuesday. After their trip to see that drummer, Roderick and the guys were down in the dumps. The stuff Sebastian said really rattled them, and they even talked about taking his advice and calling it quits. It probably would have been a relief for Mackie, whose grades are in the toilet because of the band. Drew was thinking about taking his brother's old job at the deli counter, and Bill was talking about how nice it would be to have a little more free time to spend with his grandma. But for Roderick, quitting wasn't an option. He said they shouldn't listen to what some washed up rocker had to say because that guy was just bitter things hadn't worked out for him. Roderick said the reason Metal Chihuahua broke up was because they became everything they used to be against. And he said as long as Loaded Dipper sticks together, nothing can stand in their way. I guess the other guys were inspired by Roderick's speech because suddenly they were all in. Bill said Loaded Dipper could become even more popular than Metal Chihuahua ever was, and maybe even become the biggest band of all time. Mackie said if they wanted to be the biggest band of all time, they were going to have to do something nobody's ever done before. So Drew said maybe they could play a concert in outer space, which all the guys were pretty excited about, even though none of them seemed to have any idea how that would actually work. Bill said Loaded Dipper could have a ride at an amusement park, and even threw out a few concepts that everyone liked. But Roderick said Bill was thinking too small. He said Loaded Dipper should have their own theme park, and the guys even sketched out a map of where everything would go. Mackie said they'd make so much money from their theme park they could afford to destroy their instruments at the end of every show. Just like Metal Chihuahua used to do. But then Bill had an even crazier idea. He said they should build a giant robot baby that would come out during the last song, and when the concert was over, it would destroy the whole set. And everybody thought that was the best idea yet. Then Drew said the baby could double as the band's transportation, and they could use it to get around. Even though the guys were pretty excited about their ideas, the giant robot baby will have to wait until they save up a little money for now. So for now, they're going to have to settle for what they could get at the Halloween store. Saturday. Ever since Loaded Dipper decided to stick together, they've been laser focused on getting ready for the Battle of the Bands. But it turns out they got a little competition. There's a new band that's been putting their posters up all around town. It looks like these guys have a lot in common with Loaded Dipper. Alrighty then, I'm done reading for now. Thank you all for tuning in, and keep it rigid. You have a good one. Thank you.